Well, welcome to episode 3 of the My Inner Struggle podcast. Why did
We
you
just
do
can't
that?
get the front right. I don't know what happens to us at the
Jesus.
beginning. We're ready for you guys, and it counts down. It's very professional. And then Laura laughs and forget
I
about it.
can't help it.
I know.
It's
I know.
funny.
All right. Well, welcome.
So, yeah. So, I hope that you've been watching. If you're new here, welcome. I am Laura Ferry. I have been writing a blog for about 8 years. You can find it at myinnerstruggle.com. And Julie here is
Just sidekick extraordinaire, really, when it comes down to it.
Julie is joining me in this podcast, and it's been like really cool.
Yeah. Episode 3, right? Right
Yeah.
here.
Who are you?
Who are I? So I am Julie, as Laura said. Laura and I have been friends for a very long time.
Way long.
And I am just somebody who is kind of finding my way by stepping out of my comfort zone and really figuring out what there is for me that's more, that gives back, that fulfills, that makes me a more complete person. And we're doing all of that on this podcast with you.
Love it.
So
I love it.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool, actually, and we didn't even count on this, but I'm pretty unpredictable, but that you are growing here. Like,
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love it. So, if you hadn't caught the podcast before, week 1, we talked about manifesting. And then last week we touched a lot on, redirecting your thoughts, which is super important, in every avenue of your life. And this week we were going to talk about creating space, all kinds of space. Do you want to tell them about the space?
Do you want to ask me how my weekend was first?
Oh shit, I'm sorry. How was your weekend? That was so rude.
I know. Telling you guys. My weekend was great. Thanks for asking. I actually wanted to just take a little side note out of our podcast and do a shout out to the Green Township Fire Department. We had their installation dinner for the new officers, and anyone who is not familiar with a volunteer organization like a fire department, first aid squad.
Right now. Go ahead.
I know. These men and women really do dedicate a lot of their time. And my husband, I always feel like, is a little more so than some others, but he really, it's a whole group of people, right? And yeah, I have to think about it. You know, these men and women, they leave their homes, their kids, their wives, Jeremy had a fire call. I remember it was Christmas, one morning at Christmas, and his pager went off at like 6 a.m. and he got up, and, our kids were little at the time, and they didn't understand that they had to wait to open their presents until he got home. And I was pretty upset. I won't lie. But the alternative, somebody needs help, right, and, he can help. So my little shout out is to any, volunteer organization, whether it be fire department, EMS, in particular right now for me is Green Township. I just wanted to say thank you. The dinner was fabulous. I think there may be a clip.
Good karaoke going
I think there might be a clip of I've had the time of my life karaoke. Donna and Elisa, if you're listening, I'm sure we could make some money on TikTok. Just throwing it out there. But yeah,
TikTok.
What's that?
Nothing. Go on.
I'm listening. But yeah, so just a quick shout out, and I wanted to say thank you. Make sure that, if you live in a community that doesn't have paid services like that and you have volunteers, thank them. Go to their fundraisers. If they're having a coin toss, throw in some coins. It really does make a difference, not only in their lives, but also it could make a difference in yours as far as life-saving equipment that they can purchase with those funds.
Excuse me, I think you've allotted or passed your allotted time.
I apologize, Laura. How was your weekend?
It was good. I actually spent a considerable amount. Oh, I saw you Friday night, right? I did. Yeah. I spent some considerable time on Saturday just decompressing, and things are really going great with my business, and I just needed some time.
Yeah.
So my kids were with their dad, and I just got to spend some time. I watched a lot of good movies, actually.
Yeah, you said that. Yeah. That's awesome.
So
I think everybody needs a down day, just to really recoup, reset.
Right. And I think that helps me keep my balance a little bit, just knowing that I have some of that time. And I know, I'm divorced, so I'm fortunate in the way that, you know, their dad is very involved and he does have that time with them. So that allows me to have some time. And it's so important for you to try and carve out that time for yourself. No matter what, you know, hire a babysitter or, you know, whatever, you have to take that time. There's always some sort of option. And if you, you know, actually think about it and really make yourself a priority, it's really important.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I agree. Well, I'm glad that you had that time, especially since this week has so far been
some like resentment in that, or
not at all. I was singing karaoke. I have no resentment in that at all. You should see the video. I thought the waitress thought I was going to actually do the jump up thing, and her face was sheer panic. I was like, I'm not going to do it, I promise. Anyhow, let's talk about creating space.
Okay.
So there's all different spaces, right? There's physical space, there's heart space, there's head space, there's outer space. I'm not sure we're going to touch on that one as much today. But there's different ways that you can create space.
Tell me about all the ways, Julie.
I don't know. You're a little punchy today.
I know.
All right. So there's different. So we'll start with our physical space, right?
Yes.
The stuff that we see around us, you know. Some of the easiest and almost kind of quickest ways is just decluttering, whether it is kind of picking everything up and putting it in a neater stack or putting it in a drawer, you know, just putting away laundry. I know my son struggles with putting away his laundry, but it doesn't really change the whole look of the space.
Right.
Another way that you can really create space in your physical realm is organization.
Yes.
Right. So I know that we have talked, I'm a very organized person and
You're
I like
frightfully organized.
I like things.
You are what I kind of like idolize in some ways.
Well, thank you. That's very kind.
You know,
thanks.
Yeah.
I like things in a particular way.
Yeah.
Right.
I think, we put our own spin on it. Right.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that I like to do, and I would love for you to try it as your homework this week, is to clean one space in your house. And it doesn't have to be like a whole room. It could be cleaning off your dresser or getting the shit off the kitchen table or the island or something. Take a space that, you know, you can kind of accomplish in a short amount of time and really just declutter, organize it, and see how good it makes you feel. And those are the types of things that we need to make sure that we do for ourselves,
right,
in order to get organized and move to the next step. Because if you don't keep maintaining that or you know, going through those things, the physical stuff starts to pile up so fast. Think about your mail every day, you know, or whatever.
And it's funny because we used physical space as our first space that we're going to talk about today, because you can see it, right? It's right there. You can't see the emotional space. You can't see the mental space, but it gets just as cluttered.
Not at first.
Not at first. Yes.
But yes.
So the physical space is one that, you know, in a relatively quickly 10, 15 minutes, you just spend dedicated to one area. Like you said, what is the cabinet, the kitchen table, whatever the case may be. It really makes a difference, because then when you walk into that area, you're not, hit my microphone.
Don't break it. We're on a budget.
You walk in and you're not overwhelmed by just stuff everywhere, right?
So one of creating space, physical space, and organizing when you wake up in the morning, and I've said this over and over and over again, your bedroom should be like your sanctuary, basically. And the less shit you have in there, the better. So every Sunday I clean my room. I change my sheets, I clean my room, I dust my dresser, I vacuum, so that you're starting your week off with a clean slate and you're waking up in a space that inspires you. And that's really important. And I think that, you know, people are like, it's your bedroom, who cares, who sees it? But you do. Yeah. So if you wake up in a space that's not inspiring or calming, then that's what you're going to feel.
Right.
Yeah.
I know Claire, my daughter.
Yes.
She, you know her. She has a Sunday reset, right?
Yeah.
So she actually...
I love that. I'd love to talk to her about that.
She actually cleans the whole house.
Yeah.
So she starts in her room and she does all of the things that you just listed, but then she cleans the house. She cleans, the bathrooms. She dusts, she vacuums.
It's like
she loves to clean the stove, which party on, because who loves to clean the stove?
I just use the clean mode.
No, I mean like the stove top.
Oh, that.
Not the oven.
Oh, that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But it helps her really focus for her week, and it creates this, physical cleanly space for her to really let come in anything that happens throughout the week that, so I think it's really important that, the physical space, like you said, is calming, and, you not cluttered with junk.
Right.
I think that's I guess it's
Yeah.
not cluttered with junk, everybody.
Not rocket science, right?
No, it's definitely not.
When we have piles of paper all over the place, it just makes us feel like overwhelmed and we don't know where to start.
Yeah. All right, so that's our physical space, right? So let's talk about, you want to talk about people space or mental space?
I'm going to talk about people space.
All right, let's talk about
because I think that'll
space.
be a good transition into mental space.
Okay.
So about a year ago or so, or a little bit more, I left a job that it was time for me to go. What I didn't anticipate was losing all of those friendships and those relationships. And so I felt a little isolated, quite frankly. But what I didn't realize until months later was that it left a lot of room for growth.
Mm-hmm.
So when you are starting off, and I talk about, small business, because that is my business, is small business. And so we focus on that. And a lot of entrepreneurs that are ready to start, their new thing. And I had a coaching client that started this week, and she is starting her own business. And that's super exciting, but it's also super scary, right? And sometimes we talked about last week too, about redirecting our thoughts, and how when we start on our own self-improvement, how our friends may have an issue with that eventually, right? And so as we grow, we may lose some of those people. And while it hurts sometimes, it creates space for other things. So I had all of this open space, but I doubled down on my business. And I don't think that I would be where I am now with my business had I not lost some of those relationships.
Right.
As shitty as it sounds. And I love those people.
Yeah.
That's the thing. But it created all of this space for me to grow to the next level. And as I said, we're leveling up, right?
Yeah.
So, you sometimes lose those relationships with people, and it sucks in the moment. And then, if it's meant to be, then maybe it'll come back around or whatever, or you'll reconnect, like you and I, like we hadn't connected in a while. And then, in August, when you made your transition, and it's nice to be able to talk to you because you kind of know, like,
what you're going through. Yeah.
And other business owners may know, because you know what, like there's something about a business owner that people that have never done it before don't understand. And so that's kind of a tricky thing. And so part of that is now I'm networking with all these different networking groups, and I'm meeting other business owners. And it's so cool to be able to talk to them, and they understand all the different struggles. Like, oh yes, because, we're working around the clock right now to get things going.
Yeah.
And I don't have time to hang out all the time, unfortunately. And my free time, I'm filling my cup. I'm doing the things that I need to for myself, for my kids, and like home, and then my business, right?
Yeah.
So it created space for that. So that's what we mean by people space, because your relationships will change. So
there was that great quote I sent you this week, which
just one great quote.
a million. All right. It says, the universe has removed you from a table where you used to sit in order to save you from a host who was serving poison. Let that sink in.
Yeah.
Right. So and
it doesn't always have to be poison, but yes.
But the moral of the story is the universe is removing you from something, and no matter how hard or how upsetting at the time it is, and because it is, losing a job, a relationship, or a combination of both, you kind of feel isolated, alone, like why did that happen to me?
Right.
What could I have done differently? Really, it's time for something more, right? For you to experience something more.
And sometimes it's tough to let go of that in order to let the other stuff in. Yeah, but you're creating that space. Yeah. And that's super important.
Yeah. So to piggyback off of the people space, the emotional space. So one of the things that you said is self-care, right? big, huge proponent of self-care, right?
Massages.
So before my karaoke tour on Saturday, I actually had a massage, and it was amazing.
That was on Saturday?
It was.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was. I was gonna post a reel for you guys, but Nicole
I still think you should
said I look like George Washington with my hair up. She's like, it was really gray, and I was like, well, now I can't post
I
that.
thought it was fine.
No,
it's like no. Oh, okay.
But self-care is really, really important.
Yes.
You know, whether it's a walk, journaling, talking to a friend,
reading a book,
mm-hmm. massages, exercising, going to get your nails done, getting your hair done,
mm-hmm.
whatever it is that makes you feel better.
Yes.
Right? About whether it's about yourself, your parents,
well,
whatever.
and yours may be different than mine.
Yeah.
It probably is.
Yeah.
But
everybody's is different. You know, it's unique to each person.
Yes.
So
I love giving you a hard time.
She's so good at it, everybody.
All right. So what's next?
Did you want to talk any about the healthy communication as far as emotional space goes? Because that can be kind of tricky,
healthy
right?
Communication?
Yeah. Having the open lines of communication. Let's face it, not everybody communicates with their whole heart. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So I think having healthy communication is essential for your emotional space.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you smiling?
I just love you so much.
I do. It's very important, and healthy communication can literally be with yourself, about about your goals, about what you want in life, from somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that it needs to be honest. You know, otherwise
be honest with yourself.
Be honest with yourself. Well, and others.
Yes.
You know, but I think that's
of course,
a big thing.
That's the hardest thing that you can do is look in the mirror.
True.
Like everybody can give their friends advice, right? You should do this. You should do that. And maybe that's not the right thing for you. But until you spend the time and look at yourself in the mirror and pick apart all the different things the behaviors, I'm not saying your looks, obviously, but pick apart, why can't I say that word? It's like I moved. I have a different accent. Can you say it?
You pick apart
all the different pieces of you.
I enunciate my T's.
All the different pieces of you that need work. And I'm not saying I'm picking apart I'm not a good person. It's those I want to work on my confidence. Mm-hmm. I want to feel good when I walk into a room of strangers that I've never met before. Yeah. And you know what's this has nothing, well, it sort of has something to do with it, but it sort of doesn't. And I can't remember if I said it to you or to my sister, but I struggle with anxiety. I didn't even really know that it was actually anxiety until a few years ago. I just thought everyone felt like that all the time. And I remember talking with a therapist and then another coach friend, and she's like, yeah, that's anxiety. And I'm like, oh, and this was probably 5 years ago, but I've kind of dealt with it my whole life, just sort of sitting in uncomfortableness. But when it comes to emotional space for me, it's easier for me to walk into a big room of people and I can talk in front of a few hundred people and feel totally at ease as long as I know what I'm talking about, than walking into a room of 20 people that I don't know, that I have to get to know. And actually it's funny because I for years had referred to myself as an extroverted introvert or an introverted extrovert. When I'm comfortable, there's no stopping me. I mean, look at me. This is ridiculous. And
just on fire.
But when I'm not in company that I'm totally comfortable with, I really have to push myself. And I don't even know how I wound up on this tangent.
It's just part of being the same thing.
Yeah. You just have to get used to it.
It's all about, looking at, you were saying you were going to look in the mirror and really figure out, be honest with yourself. It's that communication.
So I was going to a networking meeting today, right? And I said, you came with me to it. And I was so uncomfortable about going. We do these things once a month. Yeah. And you'd think that it gets a little bit easier, and it does in certain ways, but it's the anticipation leading up to it. And then once I walk through the doors, now I feel a little bit better. But then, and then I had a secondary committee meeting afterwards, and that was fine. And I'm getting used to those things, but those are things that I've wanted to work on myself for a long time. And you don't really get to work on it unless you actually fucking do it.
Well, you have to have the space to do it.
It's
all about the creating the space. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, that just tied us back right around. Look at me go. Woof.
It's like you're inside my brain right now.
Oh, good, because our
It's a scary
next
place.
space
Oh,
is
no.
the mental space.
Oh, mental space.
This one can be tricky, I find, because if you're not having those honest conversations with yourself about really kind of what's good for you and what's not,
Right.
Mentally you can go down a not so helpful path.
Right.
Tying in some of those redirecting your thoughts that we talked about last week is a big key component. But just another one that we have talked about is setting boundaries. Right. And
yes.
that's really difficult for for a lot of people. I'll be honest. Like I have a hard time with that when it comes to, certain aspects of my life. And I kind of just want to be the one that's doing it for everybody and be there for everybody. And
it's way easier to give everybody else advice
than yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But then
I'm not criticizing because we all do it.
Yeah.
Like it's definitely, but I think once we all start to embody that practice, it changes things. It changes the whole game.
Yeah. Yeah. Another one for mental space though is really like mindful practice. And I know we talked about this last week, practicing gratitude, but being mindful of the things that you're saying to yourself. So again, in your mental space, what's the message that you're telling yourself? Right. Are you telling yourself that you're good enough? Are you telling yourself you're not good enough? What did we say last week, right? You're the constant voice you hear every day. So
all day
whatever
long.
it is you're saying to yourself about yourself is what you're listening to.
And it can be anything. And I've encountered all sorts of people, very good friends of mine that literally will, I'm standing in the store and he's looking for something in particular. And he's like, God, I'm so stupid. Why didn't he see it there? And in the moment you think nothing of it, but it's like, how many times a day do you do that to yourself?
Yeah.
Ugh, like I'm disorganized, or I can't get anything done. I'm not, like all of those things. Definitely when you stop doing that, you catch yourself in your tracks and you redirect your thought, like we talked about last week, and fill it with something better.
Yeah.
You know what? I didn't see it. I have a busy day and I have a lot on my mind.
Yeah,
it doesn't.
I looked right over it. Yeah. I know anytime I hear more so my son than my daughter say, "Oh, I'm so stupid. I can't believe I did that." I always, and I have for forever. No, you're not. We don't say that about ourselves, And I always, just because that's nothing I ever want my kid. I want to set them on the path where they're believing in themselves.
Take it easy on yourself. You made a mistake. Move on.
Everybody makes them
every fucking day, all day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't make them all day, Laura, but learned from my mistakes here and there. So those are just a few ways that we kind of put together. As you guys know, we talk about these podcasts for a whole week leading up to it, and we have lots of ideas. We'd love to hear your ideas, and we did get some feedback that was fantastic.
We did. And, if there's a topic that you want discussed or a question, or if you think that, I don't know, or if you have a criticism even, like we're learning, and this is kind of fun.
Absolutely.
So that was on creating space. Next week, what are we going to talk about?
Next week, we're going to talk about discovering I have it written down here, discovering your inner strength.
Yeah, I can't read your handwriting. We're going to have to change that up. Okay. We have some notes here. We're trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
Inner strength. Yeah, inner strength. But I was going to say, I want you to take this week until our next podcast, because you sit here like waiting for it to come out, with your popcorn. Right?
I thought she was talking to me. Did you guys think she was talking to me? Because she was like, I want you. And I thought,
you should do it too. I'll do it too, because we can post pictures on Facebook.
Okay.
And follow along. But take a space in your house. Like I said, you have homework. Take a space, a physical space in your house, and clean it. Declutter it, whatever it is. Share it on my Facebook page. I'll put a post up and you can comment with your pictures, because it's really fun when we have this great community. So why not? And I think it's really great, because we're all in the same boat. And this is one of the things that why I wanted to start the podcast, is because nobody wants to talk about anything.
Yeah.
And I am like the queen of uncomfortable. Let's bring it on.
Yeah.
Like, let's talk about it. All of the messy things in life, let's just make it normal so that people don't have to hide.
You know what would be a great idea for a podcast? Just a nothing but questions from, you know what I mean? From people commenting, and what kind of questions do you guys want to hear? What advice do you want to give? Or what's the advice somebody always comes to you for? You know, I mean, some people are so good at giving career advice or love
That's
advice
true.
or, you know, just life advice.
Can I find the love advice?
Yes. So Laura's looking for love advice. If you can hit us up with that, perfect.
Yes.
But I mean, how awesome would that kind of a podcast be?
That
I think
would
we
be
should,
kinda cool.
maybe next month we'll put that on our agenda.
Yeah. Keep sending your questions.
Keep sending them in. We'll compile them.
Just a few reminders. Definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel. There's lots of great stuff. I've been adding some like tips and stuff about deep breathing. I'm about to complete my meditation certification, so I'm thinking about doing some lives on Facebook with that. So if you're interested, follow My Inner Struggle on Facebook. Don't forget to read the blog at myinnerstruggle.com. Check out the previous podcasts. You can find it on Spotify and on YouTube. And yeah, what else? Is that it?
I think that's it for today.
Have a great week.
Have a great week. Yeah. Get out there. If you have great weather, get out, go for a walk. You know, invite a friend to come with you, you know, and just talk about life, talk about, you know, struggles that you might be having, and talk about what kind of questions you want to share with us.
Yeah.
And I think that's good. We're good.
Yeah, we're good.
All right. Have a good week, everybody.
Bye.